Hello again, this is Nigel from Mad About Animals. There's a saying, isn't there, that if you argue with someone on social media, sooner or later, and often sooner, they'll call you a Nazi. I think for vegans, it's a little bit different to that, in that quite often they liken us to Hitler. And they often say, well, Hitler was vegetarian. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. The research that I've done seems to indicate that historians are undecided about the validity of that claim. There are some historians with good evidence who say that Hitler was vegetarian during the war years, but wasn't before the war. I've read accounts from Hitler's personal chef who says that he was partial to sausages, and there are accounts from people like Rudolf Hess who say that Hitler was very fond of liver dumplings, for example. But there is some quite strong evidence that he was vegetarian, at least from war breaking out until his death. Although it's quite likely, I think, that he wasn't vegetarian before the war. I've seen accounts that say that it was part of the propaganda that Goebbels concocted, that Goebbels advised Hitler that he needed to have an outward appearance of kindness, of approachability, of tenderness, to get him being liked by people. Mahatma Gandhi was very popular at the time, so he was vegetarian. So part of Goebbels' plan was that if Hitler presented as vegetarian, it would make him seem more appealing, more likable, more lovable. So that's one theory. Another theory, which is almost contradictory to that one, is that it was something put about by the Allies, in that the Allies portrayed Hitler as a vegetarian to make him seem weak and feeble, because many people perceive vegetarians to be weak and feeble. There's evidence that Hitler imprisoned lots of prominent vegetarians, so it wasn't like he had vegetarians in high esteem or anything like that. There's also very little evidence that Hitler did anything about imposing vegetarianism on any of his staff, on any of his soldiers. There's some evidence that he was very interested in history, and particularly the history of Roman gladiators, and he believed that Roman gladiators lived on diets primarily of vegetables and fruit, and that was one of the reasons why Hitler thought that that was a good diet to have. In my view, if Hitler really did think that, then why didn't he impose that, certainly on his crack troops or the SS or something like that? But there's no evidence that I can find that says he did that. So I guess the jury's still out on that one. But that's not the tack that I take when people raise the Hitler was a vegetarian objection. Is it an objection? Comment. So when people raise the Hitler was a vegetarian comment when I'm debating them, my simple answer to that is, so what? What does that mean? Why should that be important about anything? He was also Austrian. So does that mean that all Austrians are evil or weird or freakish? He had a moustache. Does that mean that all people with moustaches are weak or feeble or crazy? His star sign was Taurus. Does that mean that all Taurians are crazy or weak or feeble? What difference does it make, his star sign or his country of birth, or the fact that he was vegetarian or not? What difference does that make? There is good and bad in everyone. Good people do bad things and bad people do good things. Hitler clearly did a lot of bad things. If he did a good thing by being vegetarian, then that doesn't negate the bad things, nor does it mean that people who were vegetarian always do bad things. Just crazy, crazy logic. Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, he was Catholic. Does that mean that all Catholics are serial killers? Of course it doesn't. It has no bearing whatsoever. It's just an indication that meat eaters, they want to try and tar us with any brush that they can find to make us look evil or weird or cranky or stupid or whatever. So even if Hitler was a vegetarian, he certainly wasn't vegan. And even if he was the most strict, most tender, most loyal, best animal activist in the world, he still committed atrocities. He was still evil. And that does not mean that all vegans are like that. The two things are completely unrelated. So, meat eaters, why say it? It's such a pathetic strawman argument. You think you've got a point? Well, you haven't. Who cares? Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's very, very, very unsound, poor logic. If you found this useful or informative, please like, share and subscribe, and watch out for the next video. Thank you.